Mercedes has had a poor start to the 2023 F1 season, which has led the Silver Arrows to adopt a Plan B car design. What is Mercedes aiming for with this bold move, and will it improve their performance? Let's find out. The relative upturn in form during the second half of the season may have been the worst thing that could have happened to Mercedes, as it was enough to convince them to stick with their much talked about zero side pod concept. There was a cautious optimism emanating from the team's Brackley factory throughout the winter, with Wolff and his drivers striking a defiant tone as faith in the untapped potential of their concept remained. At their W14 launch on February 15th, Wolff warned they might start the season behind Red Bull, but was confident the car would eventually be competitive enough to fight at the very front of the grid. There was concern at pre-season testing as the second of the 3 days saw Hamilton struggle for balance in the morning before Russell broke down with a hydraulic issue in the latest session, but a better final day saw some positivity retained. Russell left Bahrain, which hosted both testing and the opening race, to work on improving the car back at the factory in the UK, and upon his return to the Sakhir circuit expressed confidence that significant progress had been made. However, that would be the end of the positivity. 3 practice sessions, qualifying, and a race later, it had become clear to Mercedes that their concept was flawed and that their 2023 title hopes were already in tatters. After the opening 2 rounds of the 2023 Formula One season, it is now obvious that Mercedes have once more failed to build a title-contending car. The positive noises coming from the Mercedes camp throughout the off-season quickly gave way to pessimism as Lewis Hamilton finished 5th and teammate George Russell 7th in Bahrain. In Saudi Arabia, they finished 4th and 5th respectively. Mercedes were not alone in being unable to compete with the reigning Constructors' champions, but the fact that they have finished behind the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso in the first 2 rounds has left the team in a despondent mood. Hamilton, aware that his hopes of this year claiming a record 8th driver's title are already looking extremely faint, appeared to criticise his team for failing to listen to his views on car design, while team principal Toto Wolff described the Bahrain GP as one of the worst days in racing. You're enjoying this video, right? You definitely don't want to miss out on other amazing videos. So all you have to do is hit the subscription button. It's that easy. Thanks for doing that. Let's move on. The German car manufacturer has committed to an action plan that will trigger a change of concept as it moves away from the zero side pod idea that it has raced with since the start of last season. And while it knows that it will take a long time for it to make the progress it thinks is necessary to be fighting right at the front, Mercedes has offered some encouraging news for drivers Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. Speaking at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff said that the squad had already unlocked good performance steps now, that it has changed its approach. Wolff explained, "It is a big step in relative performance to where we even are now. The kind of gains that are coming in our R&D and in aero are much bigger than we've had over a long time. So we've unlocked some potential because we are simply looking at things from different angles now. We have a different perspective because of our learnings of the Bahrain test and race. There was no step back. On the contrary, there were immediately 2 steps forward. While much of the focus of concept talk at the team has revolved around the side pods, it appears that the change of direction for Mercedes relates more to the setup window of where the car runs in relation to the ground." Wolff continued, "I think the biggest change that we have made is actually looking at whether we want to have the car set up in its sweet spot. We were too low last year and we've been too high this year, and we believe we know what to land on. On the other side, then obviously everything else follows in terms of floor and bodywork that you want to achieve. So I don't want to sound too foolishly optimistic, but at least we see low-hanging fruit with things that are encouraging." Wolff said that as a result of the work being done, future development of the W14 would make it look very different. He said, "It is all the aerodynamic surfaces that are visible, from the leading edge all the way to the diffuser and the beam wing. There's massive amounts on the floor, obviously with a ground effect car, and then there's many more architectural things that are necessary in order to do things more efficiently. So it's literally the car is being turned upside down at the moment, and there's a lot of goodness that we see." While George Russell's 4th place finish at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix has given the team an indication that things may not be as bad as they looked in Bahrain, Wolff says that his views on the team needing a major car rethink are unchanged. He said, "We're always looking at the benchmark performance, and that is Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez today, and it's just too far away, so that hasn't changed. I think if Max would have finished qualifying, the gap would have been even bigger. We have seen it in other long runs too, so my state of mind hasn't changed a millimeter just because we are P3 in qualifying, but the difference is that the trajectory is set now, so it's not any more this single session, single qualifying, or even a single race. We are just storming full steam ahead now, changing things." But how did Mercedes even find themselves in this type of situation? Mercedes' dominance from 2014 to 2021 was built upon the fact they had the best engine, so it is possible to argue that their aerodynamics department never needed to be the best. While it would be wrong to suggest their very talented drivers and engineers are subpar, it is a fair question to ask whether they have anyone who matches up to Red Bull's Chief Technical Officer, Adrian Newey. But you could say that about every other team without his services. While something has clearly gone wrong with the concept of Mercedes W13 and W14, there are also concerns that their engine is no longer the most powerful, with Ferrari and Red Bull both appearing to be more powerful following the sport's 2022 engine freeze, which remains in place until the end of 2025. Teams were required to submit a final design of their power units before the start of the 2022 season, with changes only allowed to be made to improve reliability or safety. Mercedes appeared to produce a highly reliable engine from the off, whereas other teams, such as Ferrari, perhaps went for a more aggressive approach of producing a higher performance engine that they could then make more reliable. One possible explanation of Mercedes' misfires is a loss of key personnel in recent years. Engine boss Andy Cowell departed before the 2020 season, former technical director James Allison took on a new role in 2021, that saw him step back from day-to-day duties. Chief aerodynamicist Eric Blandon moved to Aston Martin, and most recently, chief strategist James Vowles left to become Williams' team principal. In addition, Mercedes lost the head of their mechanical engineering division, Ben Hodgkinson, to Red Bull last year as their rivals went on an aggressive recruitment drive for their new powertrains division, which saw around 15 other employees make a move. It is also worth considering that Mercedes, one of the richest teams in the sport, are adjusting to the 2021 introduction of a budget cap, which prevents them from throwing money at problems in the way they may have been able to do in the past. How quickly can they get back to the front? Frustratingly for Mercedes, their hopes of challenging for titles this season already appear to be extremely low, and the question for many is whether they can rebuild for the 2024 campaign. That is not to say they will completely give up on their W14. They can make radical changes to it that could help them on the path back to success. Sky Sports F1's Karen Chandok recently compared the situation they are facing to a building project, significantly pointing out that plans for Mercedes' 2024 car will already be at an advanced stage, such as the relentless pressure F1 engineers face. Chandok said it's like building a block of apartments. Think of a cycle of 4 years to build a 4-tier apartment block. Mercedes have got to think about, listen, do we throw away and knock down the first 2 years that we've built and build 3 tiers in the same time that everyone else is going to build just the last tier for next year? And that decision will have to be made now because the architecture and the layout and the concept of the car will get signed off by April for all the teams. So in the next couple of races, they have to make the decision on whether to abandon the concept and go with a whole new concept for next year. Meanwhile, Mercedes also sent an open letter to the fans, which said that they were working urgently and calmly to build our recovery plan, but would not panic, make knee-jerk reactions, or look for scapegoats. What's your thought about Mercedes' Plan B? Will it drastically change their car's performance? Let me know in the comments section below. That will be all for today's video. Thanks for staying tuned. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and notification bell so that you can always get to watch more amazing videos like this. See you in the next video.